This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning. But we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 2nd of August, 2019, and I am 2J.
I am 2M.
And I am Miss K, your host. Again, in case you missed it, this is Winning Headlines. Let's take a look at today's headlines. Daily Nation, my secret love with Ken Okoth. The Standard, MCA stops Okoth burial in child row. And The Star, I'm willing to do DNA test, Okoth's second wife. Wow.
Yes.
I think we're still with the Ken Okoth saga, but today, instead of where he'll be buried, it's that he will not be buried, and we are now deep in family drama.
Yeah, I mean, unlike yesterday, where we could at least give a legal grounding in that story, today it's become very salacious and it's tabloid-esque, which I personally don't like. I don't think that we should be delving into the personal dealings between his
and any other person that he had.
Let me tell you guys, my mind agrees with you. But my heart, my heart is with this lady. Yes, it is. And I want to defend her.
Okay.
You see, social media and Kenyans out there, they've been saying, oh, what merit does this lady have running for MCA position in Nairobi? And I'm like, what is your problem? You see, politics out there, everywhere in the world, is a game of rewards. You see,
even in corporations,
it's never about merit, all right? And I don't know whether you guys have seen this thing on Netflix. It's called The Godfather. It's a guy called Avant. I keep forgetting the other name. But this man helped Barack Obama get prime time viewership within the major networks, CNN, CNBC, Fox News, everything. And he said he did not support Barack, or rather he did not think that Barack would be able to win the presidency. But once Barack Obama won that presidency, do you know what he did?
What did he do?
He awarded Avant's daughter, Nicole Avant, with an ambassadorial position to the Bahamas. I'm not saying that lady was not deserving.
And she was deserving in her own right.
Absolutely. But how else would Barack have known of Nicole Avant? It is because she helped him, or the father helped him during the presidency.
So you're saying that politics is a game of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Yes.
All right.
And this lady, by the way, you should go for it. Even if it's MP nomination, go for it. There are Kenyans who are thinking of you shouldn't get it. They can sit on a pin.
Well then, I will say this. Regardless of whether politics is about rewards and it's about what you do, and I scratch your back and you scratch mine, there's one issue that's not being addressed. Regardless of where Ken Okoth is buried, regardless of what we think socially, morally, religiously about his relationship with the lady, there's a person that's not being addressed, and that person is the child. And I think that whatever decision should be made, if the child, then the child is legitimate because Ken Okoth had agreed to the child, but the court will make that decision that the best interest of the child are the ones that should prevail. So I say we look at all three together, and we use our three-part criteria that we use to break down the headlines for you. We ask ourselves three questions. Are these headlines topical, or are they speculative? Are they repetitive, or are they groundbreaking? And finally, are they thoughtful, or just plain lazy?
I still think, again, The Star just really has this sleazy undertone to it. I mean, second wife.
But I am telling you, if
worse
I was
than my secret love.
Oh no, this one is my best. This one.
Really?
And you see how she's looking. Like, who would not buy this headline?
I mean, okay, if we talk about the buyability, whether I want to pick it up, I agree with you. I would pick up the Daily Nation over The Star. I would.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Same here.
Are we starting to add a new criteria? Buyability? No. Kindly. Toss them. And on to our next segment, the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Just like the headlines, we have a three-part criteria that we use to break down the cartoons for you. We ask ourselves three questions. Is the cartoon humorous, or is it dry? Is it satirical, or is it pessimistic? And finally, is it effective, or just plain lazy?
Again, I want to start with The Star.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So we've told our audience about our hypothesis that ozone is Victor Ndula and Ndula is ozone. And I think we're beginning to put the pieces together. So yesterday we accused Victor Ndula of reusing and self-plagiarizing his cartoon. And now again, his mystery counterpart, Ozone, has done the exact same thing. So maybe you should just describe the cartoon and then I'll talk about the other one.
All right. I will.
Okay.
Caricature of the governor himself, Mike Sonko. And he is on the screen of the television, but his hand is tuning the volume. And the show is called The Sonko Show. And Sonko is saying, volume iko sawa. And the caption is, Okot's funeral, the plot thickens. And this is with regard to what Mike Sonko said yesterday. And you know what, guys? Again, my head did not agree with what he said.
But your heart...
However, my heart was saying... My spirit was saying, boss, continue, preach. And you see, the thing is, Africans have very bad behavior. How do you deny children that have been born, all right, by your own flesh?
That's not the bad behavior I thought you were referring to.
No.
I thought you were referring to the bad behavior of Sonko going to somebody's memorial funeral service and having the audacity to stand up and say in front of his family members, or Court's family members, that this woman should be recognized.
And that's what I'm telling you guys. Sonko, you are not the audience. The audience were the people in the congregation. They were from Kibera. If Mike Sonko was saying that at Alton's Cathedral or St. Andrews, you can say bad behavior. But because he was saying it in Kibera, or if he was saying it in Mukuru kwa Jenga, that's fantastic. Because Sonko is a political animal. He's not a priest. He does not work for an NGO. He can say some things at certain venues or for certain spaces because it fits. And you know what? If you heard what the crowd or how the crowd was responding to Mike Sonko, you would have said, aha, this man was actually not even thinking about good behavior. He was taking away Raila Odinga's crowd.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay, that's one way to look at it. But I will say I was with the media, and the media was at one point looking at the crowd. Yes, it took on what the crowd reacted.
Yeah.
But I was also focusing on the people at whom that message would impact. And I have to agree with 2J.
Yeah.
The timing of that message, even though the message may have been valid, was wrong. Not at that service.
Yeah.
Please, wait till you go to the house. Let's talk in private.
Even tweet it if you want to.
But guys, I told you it was not a Nairobi chapel. It's not at Alton's Cathedral. It's not at St. Andrews.
Anyway, the
point of a new criteria.
So besides that, we were referring to a cartoon that Ozone drew on the 17th of June of this year. It was exactly the same TV screen, exactly the same motif of the hand coming out of the screen, but inside the screen was the president, the deputy president, Mudavadi, Kalonzo, and it was in reference to some political tensions that were heating up. So again, we're going to suggest to the Star, why don't you ask for a refund back from Ozone?
For half your money. He deleted the president.
Ozone, listen, as long as you're the one who has done this cartoon, whether or not you want to use it 10 times, it is up to you. Me, I support you. If it is Sonko, whether it is Uhuru...
He's forgotten what the criteria is. This is just plain lazy. So we toss it.
It's all right.
Okay, Daily Nation. Let's see what is in here today from the author. You go, Victor Ndula.
All right, and this is in context to Punguza Mzigo. Now, this drawing caricature of the workers. Now, they have turned away from being dynasties. Raila Odinga is Seremala, so he is hitting nails on Ongeza Mzigo. The Prince Uhuru Kenyatta, he's become a worker as well. I don't know how that goes with him. Anyway, they are hanging the Ongeza Mzigo, and now in brackets, BBI, Building Bridges Initiative. And you see what they have dropped? Punguza Mzigo. It has come down. And I think this is in the context of, I think the High Court of Kenya, they have stopped the Punguza Mzigo bill from going further until something is decided. And I'm like, dynasties, these guys were sleeping through the revolution.
But now they're working very hard to make sure that it doesn't move.
They are so late. Any action, legal or illegal, whatever is taken, Punguza Mzigo, this is how it gets traction in the ground.
Yeah, that's true.
But they still have very many legal hurdles that they have to pass. You know that they've gone the long route.
That is true.
You see, Ongeza Mzigo bill can go through parliament, bypass all that maneno and get voted in much faster than Punguza Mzigo, which has to go to the counties and stay there for 3 months. So I don't know.
I agree, but let me tell you, if you see the MCAs in North Rift, what they are saying, that they will pass this thing in the morning. I am telling you, this thing will creep up on dynasties.
Yeah.
And what they're doing right now, it's too late. This thing is coming, and it's coming to get rid of them.
I still say for the cartoon, we toss it. It's not very imaginative. It's quite boring.
Finally, we have Gado, always an international animal.
I'm just going to say quickly, let's just toss it.
But first, let's describe it.
Who is this with funny legs?
We think it's Boris.
I think it's Boris Johnson.
Yeah. And he shot himself on the foot.
But Gado, this is clever, guys. You know when you hit your head on the ground, what do you see?
Oh yeah, in cartoons they say that you're seeing stars.
Seeing stars. The stars are a sign of the euro.
Oh, look at you analyzing cartoons so well today.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Now, the stars are called Brexit. He's seeing stars, right? But what he's seeing is Brexit. Instead of seeing...
What should he be saying?
The stars, the euros. This is a sign of the euros.
No. Yes, this is the EU. Yeah. The flag has these stars.
Absolutely.
I don't understand. We were going so well.
It was going so well, and now
it's a play. It's a play, guys. It's a play.
Yes,
he's been dazed. He's been dazed by getting out of the euro.
But also he shot himself on the foot.
Yes.
I get it. It makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
He's hit something. I don't know. He's hit something, and that is why
we've taken it too far now. I think we're gonna toss the cartoon.
Not because it doesn't make sense. It is very effective. However, I think today, your analysis is brilliant to a point. But I don't think today we have a winning cartoon. So no winning cartoon. What is our final thought?
And now our final thought, inspired by a book that I love. I don't know whether you like it or not, but I love it. It's called The Animal Farm by a man called George Orwell. And you see, guys, I read this book a long time ago. Then I did not think it would translate to what I'm thinking now. But before I say what I'm thinking, give us a summary.
Yeah, so as you said, Animal Farm, it is a classic. I think most people have read it.
Yes.
It was written, by George Orwell in 1945. I think it's his most famous book after this and then would be 1984.
Yeah.
So this book is a fable, reflecting the events leading up to the Russian Revolution of 1917 and the Stalinist era that followed thereafter.
Right.
And so the goal for Orwell in this book was to portray this Bolshevik revolution that happened.
Yeah.
Because after the Spanish War, he became very... Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So it resulted in a government that was more oppressive, totalitarian, and more deadly than the one it overthrew.
Yes.
So the characters in this book reflect the characters that were the key players during the revolution.
Yes.
So Mr. Jones, who is the human being, the owner of the farm, he represents Tsar Nicholas II, who was the last Russian emperor.
Yeah.
And Old Major, who was the pig who
gave them the dream.
Yeah, who gave them the dream and the inspiration, but then thereafter died.
Yes.
He represents Vladimir Lenin, who was the leader of the Bolshevik party that seized control after the revolution.
Yes.
So Old Major outlines the principles of animalism, which is a theory that holds that all animals must be equal and must revolt against their oppressors, much like the Karl Marx's theory of communism. So you're seeing those parallels. So like Lenin, Old Major dies, and he's not able to live out to see his theories and principles put into use. And then we have one of Lenin's allies, who was Leon Trotsky. And he was, in this book, his counterpart is Snowball. Then eventually Trotsky was exiled from the USSR, and likewise Snowball is also exiled from the farm by Napoleon. And then lastly we have Napoleon, who is a representation of Joseph Stalin, who went to be the leader of the USSR, but then eventually became a dictator of the Soviet Union. And then the last character, which I find is the most interesting, is Squealer, who I think was probably your favorite. And Squealer is a representation of the propaganda that was used during the Soviet era. So I think that the central conflict of this book arises when the animal's desire for freedom and equality is corrupted by the consolidation of power by the pigs. So that's why we talk about how you have this first revolution that is then corrupted, and they're trying to have the second revolution, but they're not able to do so. So things start out really well for the animals, but the power struggle between Snowball and Napoleon sees Snowball exiled, as I said, and then the pigs, through Napoleon, they start to abuse their power. They execute animals, they start changing the rules, because there's this list of rules, the commandments that all animals have to live by, that they slowly start to manipulate in their favor.
And the people are there watching this change as it happens slowly, and having their history revisited and rewritten,
and they don't know what to do. And in the final pages, the animals watch in shock and horror as the pigs dine with some human beings. beings, and they find that they're unable to tell the difference between the humans and the pigs. And it's a very sad ending.
It is. And it's a very iconic line. It's one of the iconic lines of books. You know, they usually say that some books have very iconic lines, and one of them is this book, Animal Farm, where one of the people who was there from the beginning, a horse called Clover, is looking at the pigs and is trying to understand, what is it about your face that has changed? What is it that I see in you that has changed? And when she looked back at the pigs and the humans, she came to discover that, you know what? The pigs, and they couldn't tell one for the other. They couldn't tell the pigs from the humans. And I think that was their realization that, I guess, if we were to analyze it, not over-analyze like 2M today, that you just swapped one tyrant for another.
Okay, let's do some role play.
Okay.
To see if I'm over-analyzing.
I'm very worried, by the way. You have a trend today.
Go for it.
Okay, guys. Now, this book depicts the Russian Revolution.
Yes.
In my view, however, it depicts many other revolutions that have happened.
True. Yes, I think it's applicable for many.
Including the French Revolution, and one that I think is about to happen called the Hustler Revolution.
All right.
But let's role play. Right?
Okay.
There are two pigs that I like. One is Napoleon, the other one is Snowball.
Yes.
Now, in our Kenyan context, who do you think Snowball is?
I think you already have all these answers. I'm just going to say, tell us your answers.
Just tell us your answers.
And then we will weigh them and see whether you are over-analyzing.
Okay. In my Kenyan context, Snowball is alive.
Okay.
And his name is Mwai Kibaki.
All right.
Now, I'm saying that because he had fantastic ideas. He came up with a windmill, although he did not implement it.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Napoleon is Uhuru Kenyatta.
Okay.
But I like Napoleon.
Did you pee all over the plans?
I love Napoleon.
Okay.
For the record.
There's a boxer in you saying Napoleon is always right.
You know, I like Napoleon. He's foxy, you know, and he's like this. He moves like this, but he knows what the end game is.
All right.
And he behaves like a king. He's part of the dynasties.
Okay.
All right? And then you have this horse called Boxer.
Yes.
Boxer does the heavy lifting.
He's a hard worker.
Yes.
Yeah. He's a very hard worker.
And he takes the stones to build a windmill so that this nice this animal farm can get water.
Yes.
Do you know who Boxer is in my view?
No, I don't know.
It's William Ruto.
Okay.
Those who believe in the system and work for it, because that's the representation of who Boxer is.
Absolutely, and he brings in all the votes. But he gets Asante Apunda Nini.
Mateke.
Right?
Okay.
And then you have Squilla. Squilla is a mouthpiece.
Yes.
Now, if you lived during the Moi times, Moi had a lot of squillers. One of them, okay, I will not say it because he's not with us anymore. But in Uhuru's time, the guy is called David Murathe. He says, all hail the king, all hail Napoleon. Now, David Murathe is all hail Uhuru. Right? The point is,
and here I thought that Squilla was the media, because the media is what they used, at least in the USSR, to contort and change.
But I think the difference would be that I don't think Uhuru has full control over the media.
Absolutely.
Yeah. True.
The context of this is this. I don't think the dynasties can see what is coming. You see, when, what's his name, Napoleon, when he's having dinner with the guys, and this is not in the book, but it's in the movie, but it gave me another perspective. When Napoleon is having dinner with the guys, he gives them medals, and he gives them medals for being loyal. Now, as he's giving them medals, what he does not realize is that donkey, who was, what's his name, Boxer's friend, he's called Benjamin. Benjamin had organized a revolution. And as you look outside, all the cows, all the goats, all the chickens are coming to the house of Mr. Jones that Napoleon had actually occupied to get rid of the dynasties.
So what's your point?
The aloofness of the dynasties right now. They do not know what the dynasties are, the hustlers are feeling. The hustler revolution is creeping up on the dynasties. And if they don't realize and take care, they will see and they'll experience the exact same thing that Napoleon experienced.
Oh, wow. All right.
I feel like those are tough words.
Yeah.
And I don't know, well, I think that, there's two things.
Yes.
There's the movies and interpretations of Animal Farm, and there's Animal Farm itself.
Yes.
So the book itself ends in a very bleak way, and I guess the director of that movie wanted to end in a more...
dramatic way.
Not even dramatic, more hopeful.
Yeah.
I think that I'm finding George Orwell very, very bleak. He had a very bleak outlook on life.
Yeah.
So I wanted to end in a more hopeful way, in which he took Benjamin and he elevated him to the status of a new revolutionary leader.
Yes.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just going to end with saying this is winning headlines. We have no winning headline. We have no winning cartoon.
Yeah.
And I don't know if a revolution is going to come our way, but I do have some questions.
Yeah.
Did the pigs know when they first took on power that they would become just as horrible as the thing they were fighting for?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Did Napoleon know that he would be the embodiment of his own enemy?
Oh man, that's
I
a
don't
good
know.
question. Yes.
And worse yet, did the other animals,
Yeah.
the lower animals, know that one day two legs would be better? Did they know that one day that they would accept this revolution that was put upon them? They would accept that their times were worse, even they were worse than before when they had Mr. Jones with them, and that they were just playing, and that Benjamin was right. In the end, it never matters.
Yes.
It's always going to be as bleak as that.
Absolutely.
I don't think they did.
You see, there's it's good you say that, because it reminds me of the formation. And I know you're on your final one.
Yes,
I know you're on your
we
final
go.
one. But there's this thing called the African nation state. You see, when Jomo and the rest took over power, right? And I keep saying this, they behaved a lot like old Major, right? But then, in the progression of things, because of elite consensus, they had to separate themselves away from the people. Okay? And if they had to separate themselves away from the people, they had to come up with rules and say, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. Don't sleep on Mr. Jones' bed, don't drink whiskey. But as time progressed, the Boxer and Benjamin realized that the pigs were actually sleeping in Mr. Jones' house.
They were manipulating the rules.
And then at the end, they said that all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others. Okay, that was how the African state was constructed.
That in the end, all animals were equal, but some were more equal than others.
Yes, and an elite class had to be constructed in order to rule over the rest.
Hence your revolution that is coming.
Yes.
This week we were looking at leadership and how to lead. On Monday we looked at The Dictator's Handbook by Brewster Mesquita and Alistair Smith, and we're looking at how bad behavior makes for good politics. I feel like a lot of bad behavior was present today.
Absolutely.
On Tuesday we looked at who you need, the gatekeepers, how the White House chiefs of staff define every presidency, or break it, as Lyndon Johnson found out. And on Wednesday we looked at how to get what you want, and we threw out the book, Getting to Yes, Negotiating Agreement Without Giving In. We told you, put it on the side and look at Niccolo Machiavelli's The Prince and 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. On Thursday, we looked at what happens when you fail to lead, The True Believer, thoughts on the nature of mass movements. And today we looked at an old favorite, a classic, maybe a book that's been overanalyzed, but rightly so, Animal Farm by George Orwell. I will end on a thought that I borrow from True Believer. All we've said this week is by way of discourse. We are discussing, not by way of advice.
Right.
I don't think we would speak boldly even if we had a duty to be believed. Have a great weekend and see you next week.